one-liners, Cora, coming into her own. Poor Edith, so much to talk about. And what's with these Russians? All that and more on Manner of Speaking right now. Speaking, so much went on Downton tonight. A wonderfully written episode, and we're going to share it all with you. But first of all, we want to invite you to come and join us. The best way to do it, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. You can use our handle at MannerSpeak or hashtag MOS, and all of the fun's going on at mannerofspeaking.org. But you know what? There's even more fun going on right here in the studio with our wonderful panel of guests, so let's introduce them to you now. Our always charming St. John Flynn, who is our culture and art expert. Also joining us, meteorologist and superfan, Frank Billingsley. She is the Director of Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies at the University of Houston. It is Elizabeth Gregory. And my right-hand woman, there's my hand, and there's Helen Mann, always here with us. Joining us a little later in the show, we are thrilled to have the executive producer of Masterpiece with us, Rebecca Eaton, and that's coming up in a minute. But we've got to get right into our business at hand. First off, your poll question.
Well, universally, certainly we can all relate to Edith, but I think in her own...
How many of us have illegitimate children that we've got taken away?
Understand the pain.
Let's not go into that.
We've all been rejected. But, you know,
moving right along and talking about things getting buttered, you know, Mary had a lot going on this week, and there was a comment in the show about Eleanor Glenn. And who is Eleanor Glenn? Now, the comment was made by Tom toward Mary about becoming a character in an Eleanor Glenn novel. So we thought we'd ask Elizabeth a little bit about who is Eleanor Glenn.
Well, Eleanor Glenn we know probably best from The It Girl.
Who?
But I'm not going to.
Oh, well, thank you for taking the time to talk to us today. It's always a pleasure.
Oh, Ernie, it's my pleasure. Thanks so much.
Rebecca Eaton. To hear more wonderful stories from Rebecca Eaton, she has written Making Masterpiece, a great book, and tells you about all of the wonderful things that have happened on Masterpiece. Wonderful things continue to happen right here in our own studio audience, so we sent Mr. Rogers out there to see if they had some questions for us.
We would like to know if the panel thinks that Mr. Bates took care of Mr. Green.
Well, I will be the first to say the panel is not allowed to think. We tell them...
We obey our Lord.
Obey the Lord of the Manor House. Actually, a quick poll. How many of you, just by show of hands, think Mr. Green did it? We know we love those one-liners. How many of you love the one-liners on the show? But who has the best? Well, this week there are an awful lot of good ones being tossed between Violet and Isabel. So right now we're going to find out who's the queen of the quip on Behind the Scenes.
OMG, a real blast from my past. A reminder of the balls of my youth.
I almost don't want to go after that. Mine would be from Do Good Farmer Wife, and she would say, hashtag redheaded devil is back. Won't leave my kid or husband alone. The girl landed on my stoop, that makes her mine. Go find your own. Hashtag over it. And that is a little less than 140 characters, so mine made it in there. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Doesn't that go too quick?
yes,
Absolutely.
no commercials. How do you make money?
Because of the generous support of viewers like you. But right now, we do want to thank our wonderful panel, St. John Flynn and Elizabeth Gregory. On the other couch, Frank Billingsley and Helen Mann. We want to thank all of you at home. We hope that you'll keep following us at mannerofspeaking.org. Remember to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and of course, tune in next week for an all-new episode of Downton Abbey on Masterpiece, and a new Manner of Speaking, too. Thank you and good night.
But I hope that he's going to come around because he does love her. He just hasn't recognized her for who she is.
Well, nothing helps somebody come around quicker than a good cocktail. And because they had a cocktail party, we decided we would go back and look at where did the cocktail come from? Where did that name even come from? Right now, it's our History 101. I knew we'd find a topic that would unite our whole panel in enjoyment. Anyway, thank you very much. And every week we have another History 101. Something else we have here every week is my wonderful manservant, Mr. Rogers.
Good evening, my lord.
Good evening, Mr. Rogers. What do you have for me tonight?
I have your tweets, my lord.
Ah, the tweets have arrived. Oh, Mr. Rogers, don't go anywhere because our first tweet is about Mr. Rogers. Tweet, I'm curious, if Mr. Rogers were at Downton, who would he fancy? Mr. Rogers, would you like to go with that?
I would fancy not being mentioned in people's tweets, my lord.
That one. Surprised to see how many Downton fans hate Miss Bunting. Am I the only one who want her and Tom to hook up? Yes. Yes, you are. You are the only one. I want to start live tweeting hashtag Downton PBS again for the sole purpose of someday having a tweet read by @ErnieOnTV on Manner of Speaking. Well, keep trying. One day maybe. You can tell she's an investigative journalist. Why? As soon as she heard noise upstairs, she went to her mother's room to find out what was going on. And her mother told her, it's just a strange game we're playing in here. So I have to wonder, folks, I'm going to come to you on the couches. What other strange games do you think they play upstairs in the bedroom, St. John?
Hide the coronet.
I'm going to go to the last tweet we had because I think this is a wonderful lead into where we're going. It says, Miss Bunting, worst dinner guest ever. Can you all agree with that?
So true.
We saw that horrible dinner guest, so we thought we would check with somebody who practically has written the book. Actually, her great-great-grandmother did write the book on etiquette, Emily Post, so we're going to go and talk with Anna Post about what is proper behavior in this week's Across the Pond. So beautifully written, too. The whole thing about after they had that conversation.
So gentle.
But then him saying,
can you imagine being a woman hearing that from a man?
I can't. But thank you for asking. But I can say I thought it was beautifully laid out that when they were done with the conversation, he had to excuse himself because how could they continue a conversation? I loved that line. So we've got this whole thing going on where obviously this prince and her have something, but a frame pulled her back, reminded her of the love of her husband and her duty and what a proper woman should do. But you may wonder, this Fabergé we speak of, what can you tell me about the man who made that frame? Well, actually, it's not the man who made the frame. It was his son who was the famous Fabergé. And here you're going to find out more in History 101.
I'm wondering, how private were the private conversations in the drawing room? Because, for example, the Dowager and Edith are sitting there with scads of people around, and they're discussing both Michael and the baby, and you're telling me no one overheard them?
I love that you are asking that question, because when I watched that episode, I thought the exact same thing. Here they are sitting in the drawing room, and first you see there's other people, then it's a two-shot of the two of them talking about it, and I thought, oh, maybe I was wrong, maybe there was no one else in the room. And then they pull back and there's still people in the room. It's like, it's not a cone of silence, is it, Sinjin?
Absolutely. It's a stage silence.
Oh,
It's like a stage whisper.
because it's not real.
Right.
Oh, that's the secret. These aren't real people. This isn't a real house. Who'd have thought it?
How dare you say that?
Oh, I've just upset a lot of people. I'm going to tell you, there's one other element that made it a horrible week for her. We have a tradition here in the Manor House of when a character leaves us, we put them in Mourner's Corner. And this week, we had to add Mr. Gregson to Mourner's Corner. So let's hear it. Oh, Edith's love is gone. If that's not enough to give someone a bad week, I don't know what is, people. And my last tweet, I'm going to go jump to the end here with, I wish I could say I saw the conversion therapy coming, but I totally didn't. Interesting point, you know who did see the conversion therapy coming? Our guest this week on Across the Pond. He actually happens to be the actor who plays our favorite villain on the show, Thomas Barrow. So right now, we are going to introduce you to Robert James Collier. Hello, Robert.
Hello, sir. How are you doing? Thanks for having me on the show.
Now, I think that's a challenge for an actor, is that you are inhabiting Thomas, and you have lived him for 5 years now, and you make choices along the way how to present things. How do you make sure your vision of the character ends up matching with Julian's?
It's a very good question.
He hesitated a bit too long.
Yeah.
And I think he might be
a
saying...
smile on his face at one point when he sat back down.
These women on these couches do not trust a man. Let me poll the audience out here with applause. How many do you think Bates was lying? Oh, good. I'm with you guys, not with these two. How do you feel about Mary's new do? A, I agree with Cora. We are living in the modern world. B, I agree with the hairdresser. At least she can carry it off. Most of them look like bald monkeys. I agree C, with the dowager. I thought it was a man wearing Mary's clothes. Or D, I agree with Edith. I'm just amazed that Mary could choose the day after we learned that Edith's love is dead to try a new fashion. That all I'm going to get? You can answer that poll question over at mannerspeaking.org. Love to see what you think of her new do. But you know, there's so much more of the show still to come. We're rolling into the last 3 episodes of the season. So here's a coming attraction of what's on next week's show.
So we can't but help but think that they're going to have trouble as they move forward.
Well, we speak of trouble, and in the episode, as you mentioned just a moment ago, there was the issue going on in India. So we decided that we would explain a little bit more about the Amritsar massacre that they make reference to in the episode right now in History 101. Serious subject, but things we learn from and we move forward with it. And we're always interested in learning and expanding our horizons here. One way we do that is from your input. So right now we want to hear what you had to say on Twitter. So we ask my trusty manservant, Mr. Rogers, to bring us our tweets. Atticus Aldridge, aka Matt Barber, the kind of man you'd want your daughter to marry. What do you guys think? Is that the kind of man you'd want your...
Sweetheart.
Yeah. Oh, we're getting applause on that one. A sweetheart? Is that and rich. A sweetheart and rich. Why wouldn't you want that for your daughter? Well, you know what we want for all of you? Only the best. And so we decided we would see if the actor that plays Atticus would join us to chat with us. Tell us a little bit about what it's like to be him and why he loves cake so much. So right now, we decided we would ring up for you Matt Barber across the pond.
I mean, you think about how the present Queen was schooled at home entirely and throughout her
Yes,
her
I think about that often.
I'm sure you do.
Okay, back out into the audience.
Keep them there so that you don't have to go through that whole rigmarole of finding.
Well,
and training
speaking
and,
of wonderful staff, we have all fallen in love, of course, with Mrs. Hughes and Carson. And what's going on there with their storyline? Are you wondering? Yes. We're going to try and answer that right now with a behind the scenes. Mrs. Hughes does say, I can swear neither of them were involved in Mr. Green's demise. She knows for certain. Could she have done it?
Could who have done it?
Mrs. Hughes.
Certainly not.
Well, but well, that's the end of that conversation. Let me go to this side.
Where did they suddenly get all this time to spend with children?
Well, what we've learned is nobody goes to
We
school.
actually saw Mary touch her child.
Breaking news, Mary touches child. Mary had some great lines, though, tonight. My favorite would probably be, why don't the 4 of us go to lunch? Even you, Edith. Is there a warming coming, maybe, between those two? Bishop, what do you think? I'm going to the Bishop on this one.
Oh, no.
I thought we'd have one person who would think the sanctity of family love would jump on that
Well,
bandwagon.
I will pray for them, but I'm not sure that...
And Erin Lavoie would know. She holds the Guinness World Record for cutting down the most Christmas trees. 27 in just 2 minutes. And that's History 101. That's all. Chopped them down. Yes, she chopped them down. And you know the importance of chopping down a tree? It gives us paper. And of course, when we get our tweets here, we get them on cards because we don't have a computer, but we do have my trusty manservant, Mr. Rogers.
It's the way they find their musical expression is what I try to find with my band.
We look forward to getting to experience it with the new PBS show coming up, and we're waiting with bated breath for the new season of Downton next year. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Elizabeth McGovern, Sadie and the Hotheads, we'll be keeping an eye out for that. But something else we keep an eye out for, it's our own studio audience. So we want to see what they have to say. Mr. Rogers, who do you have for me tonight?
I have a question from Lady Suzanne, my lord.
I was just wondering if anyone thinks there will be a baby Bates next season.
Of course, you've got to name him Norman. Are we all missing this?